Today's guest is the one, the only Sharon Eyal, the bold and visionary former CEO of ETS Express, a company he helped transform into North America's largest supplier of promotional drinkware. Under his leadership, ETS grew from a small operation into a powerhouse that was acquired in 2019 by Polyconcept. Super excited to have Sharon on the pod. You're going to love this. I loved it. Let's get started.
Do miss having the little ones at home. It may sound crazy to you, but because you're in it.
Yes.
But I miss those days. I'm not going to lie to you.
You know, something my dad says the same thing to me. He's like, you got to appreciate every small moment.
Yes.
It's hard sometimes because you're waking up 3-4 times a night and you're like, I'm just exhausted.
Yes.
But life goes fast and you got to appreciate the things you have. And thank God we're all healthy and things are good, and gotta appreciate those good times.
Yeah. Before you know it, like they're talking about I'll be a grandfather in the next couple of years. I'm only 52, bro. So
wow, my God, amazing.
Yes, enjoy it. It doesn't. My mom said the same thing to me. She's like, Sharon, you gotta enjoy while they're young. I'm like, enjoy what? I got no time. I can't do anything.
Exactly.
And now I look back, I'm like, wow, I get it. Anyways, let's do it.
For the audience, Sharon was an investor at Swag, so I do want to say that. And he came in at the last round right before we had the exit. And he was a great investor, and he was an important person for me to meet in the industry, even before all said and done, for a couple of reasons. I want to tell you a little story just before we dive into your story. When I started Swag, we went to an ASI show in Atlantic City. That was our first kind of introduction to the swag world with swag.com. And we were going up and down the booths, and we came across an ETS booth. And I swear to God, I looked at my co-founder, Josh, and I was like, I wish every category had an ETS. It would make our lives so much easier. Like if there was an ETS for notebooks and for backpacks, it would just make our entire lives easier because you've done all the heavy lifting. You made such an amazing product. It wasn't overwhelming, but there was enough of a selection and everything was super high quality. And we're like, we need to find more ETSs to work with. So it was great to ultimately meet you and get you involved in the company. But I guess from my perspective, Sharon, how did you find yourself in this industry? I always think about like what got us all here. Like, how did you find yourself here?
My story is really a funny one. You know, my dad started ETS back in 1985. At that time, though, we were just decorating on. He was just like I was a kid. He was decorating on glassware and ceramicware. That's what we did in Israel. He sold his car of all things to an ASI distributor. Distributor picked up the car in my dad's shop, and he takes a look around. And he says, "You know, you have all the ingredients. All you're missing is a printing machine, and you can print on drinkware into this promo industry that my dad has never even heard about." Long story short, my dad does a little research. He was familiar with printing because we used to print in Israel. He brings in a machine from France, starts printing. Before you know it, all we're doing is the promo business and no more hand decorating on glass and ceramic for the retail market, believe it or not. That's how we got started.
Awesome. So how old were you at this point when your dad started this business?
My dad started this business, I was 14. I used to work with him during the summers. Every summer I would go in with him. When I was a little kid in Israel, I would love to go into his shop and just work with the team. I've always enjoyed it. So at about 12 or 14 years old is when he started ETS, and we really got.
And when
That
did
was
you
it.
join the company full time? When was your transition in full time?
Full time was right out of high school. Towards the end of right after 11th grade, I joined ETS full time.
Wow.
Obviously, I didn't graduate high school.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
I always wanted to just get started. So 1988 is when I started to work full time at ETS. And then by 1994, me and Tally, my dad, let us take over and run the business. And that's how, and I've been running it since 94 all the way to exit, which was 2019.
Wow. So you joined when you were, sounds like early 20s, taking over the business with your sister.
Yes.
And amazing. First of all, it's like the dream of mine to one day have a family business with my kids. It sounds like a dream come true. But so awesome. So you're young 20s, you're taking over this business. How big was the business at that time when you were taking over?
Oh, actually, the business was very small. We're doing just under $1 million in annual sales, and it was the three of us plus two other team members. That was it. So we were a team of five. The facility was about 4,500 square feet, and that was ETS back in 1990, in the early 1990s.
It's amazing. And then obviously, I know you grew the business to over $100 million. You had this big exit. So you really took it from infancy with your dad, with your sister, and really built it up. Did you ever think of going beyond drinkware, or you just always focus exclusively in that category?
No, actually, believe it or not, we always just focused on drinkware because we always felt like the category was big enough to just stay in that category and do one thing extremely well. I was a firm believer in Tally and Illy. My sister and dad felt the same way. You can't be good at many things, but you could definitely be really good at one thing. If you wanted to be the best in the drinkware category, that's what we decided to do that. And distributors also asked us as other companies were beginning to diversify and get into this and get into that. Distributors actually asked us not to diversify. Said, Sharon, please just stay in drinkware. And we did that. We listened to our customers.
Awesome. Okay, so you're doing drinkware. You're growing every year. Was it like a always going up, or was there some years that just didn't really grow and you kept like trying to figure out how to make this business even better?
Yeah. So we grew every year, believe it or not. Annual sales grew every year with two exceptions. Obviously, 9/11 was a huge hit. We were still a small company at that time, but we took a big hit in September of 2001, and we actually ended up in a minus in 2001 versus 2000, slightly declined a few percentage points. And then during the Swell lawsuit in 2019, I call it a lost cause. We grew 4% that year, but at the trajectory and the run that we were on, that just wasn't acceptable. So those were the two bad years for us. Other than that, we grew every year. Even the financial crisis, we more than doubled the company because I took a big chance. I'll never forget it. I remember when everything was closing down, the markets were shutting down, whatever, everything was crashing. I went to Tally and Jason. Jason was our controller at the time. I said, "Hey guys, I want to max out everything we have. I want to bring in as much inventory as we possibly can because I think most of our competitors are gonna their lines are going to get drawn down or called down, and whoever's got inventory is going to win." We were able to take the company in the financial crisis from 18 million to 38 million the following year,
Wow.
which was one of the hardest things we did because we ran out of cash ourselves. To be honest with you, what you don't realize is, okay, when you grow that fast, okay, you have more receivables, you have more payables, everything just the money runs out. And it was a fun ride, but it was a crazy ride. But anyways, it was a
Yeah,
great year for us.
that's a I always think about suppliers or industry because obviously I'm coming from the distributor side, and we don't have to take any risk in terms of inventory or what's going to sell out. Or people always say, like, do you care which product sells? Like, I want all of our products to sell. I want the products that we have the best relationships to sell. But we didn't have to take that risk. If something doesn't sell, it's not no skin off our back. How was that running a supplier in the industry with so much uncertainty of what SKU, what style, what color? How did you approach that?
You know, for us, we really well, two things changed for us. Number one, when we decided to take ETS into a different direction, we started designing our own product, and so anything we saw in Canton, we weren't really interested in. So whatever other people had, if it was really hot, we would bring it in just so we don't miss out on the run. But it wasn't really our core. The way we did it is we were just very certain on the items we brought in, but you still bomb out, right? What you think is going to be great sometimes doesn't sell. But I will tell you this: either we reduced the price or we ran some kind of special promo. We never really lost money on bad inventory. We always figured out a way to either break even or even make a little bit on the stuff that didn't sell, believe it or not. So
Wow.
we were very fortunate in that case.
That's amazing. And did you have, like, a design team that crafted products? Like, how was your involvement in the product side of things?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we were just like everybody else. We were just printing on the regular OEM stuff that everybody else was bringing in. It was glass and ceramic, and then stainless was introduced. But what happened to us is we used to decorate for this retail company called Signature, and they came out with this latte ceramic mug, and I asked them if I could carry it. I would buy it from them and carry it. Okay, at that time, we're getting $2 for like a ceramic piece. This is in the early 2000s, late 1990s. And then we were getting 5.5, 5.49 for this piece, and we couldn't keep it in stock, Jeremy. And that's when I said, you know what, Tally, I'll never forget we were shooting this shit. And I said, Tally, we really need to become, at that time, Apple just brought Steve Jobs back and they had all these Macs in these different colors. I said, Tally, we really need to become the Apple of drinkware in our industry. And that was the changing point. So we started bringing in designers. We had a team of 4 people that would design products in-house at ETS. And I was very involved. That was like my passion. I really enjoyed designing the products. And that was it. It got to the point where Blake took over for us. He was our lead product designer, and then he would run everything. The team would give him designs. He would get him ready for the factories. He knew how the molds work, how the product was work. We took him to China. He learned how everything works from A to Z. So he can design not only something that looks good on screen, but something that you can actually use as well and produce in mass quantities at a reasonable price.
Mhm. It's funny, I was just thinking of, like, what I think sets you guys apart, and there's a lot that set ETS apart in my mind. You know, coming from the perspective of swag.com, and we wanted to be the place that only offered quality products that people wanted to keep. It was important we had supplier partners who had that same mentality. And for me, it was not only the product selection, and obviously now I'm hearing a lot of it was internally designed, which is kind of blowing my mind, but the customer service, the team you had or have is amazing as well. I remember there was a deal that we were trying to win from Sweetgreen and Uber Eats, and it was a very big deal for us at the time. And it was a very complicated print. They wanted the print to be all around the bottle without any separation. And obviously, when you have to like, there's the typical way to do it, there's always gonna be that kind of gap between a full, and they really work with us to be creative and try to figure out a way how to make it effortless and streamlined and without having that line, that separation line. And that was very important to the Sweetgreen Uber Eats agency that was doing the order. And they were able to do it and really figured it out in like a week. And they did like a 5,000 bottle order for us really quick, amazing. It's actually one of the bottles that I keep at my house as like an inspirational piece. Cause for me, it was like one of these big deals that we won. It was so early and it was so complicated that we had to work through it. So I guess from my perspective, I know what sets you apart, but from your perspective as the leader of this business for such a long period of time, what do you think sets ETS apart from everybody else?
I think outside of the product design, I think our registration, our tight registration that we're able to hold full wraparound prints. One of the things that most people don't realize is that ETS, not only did we design the product, we also designed our own printing machines. My dad is a mechanical engineer, so I was very fortunate to work with him, and we would come out with very clever ideas that make us more efficient, that make us be able to. Uh, it helped us hold registration. So we were able to do a lot of things that our competitors just could not maintain. And then customer service was a key point for us. We always insisted, or I always insisted, I should say, with the team, please treat everybody the way you want to be treated. The one thing we did at DTS, we treated our customers, our vendors, and our team members all alike. And I thought it was very important that we treat our suppliers just like our customers, and we treat our team members just like family, and we would get the best in return. And we were able to pull that off. We were a team of 610 people when we exited with very minimal management. It was almost like an employee-run business, but it wasn't. Everybody was their own boss. We didn't really micromanage anybody. It was everybody. It was a hands-off environment, and there's plus and minuses there. A lot of distributors, when they used to walk ETS, they couldn't believe, number one, the size. They thought we were a much smaller company, but they couldn't believe how fast our people moved. And the reason for that is our people were free to do whatever they wanted to do. They were never managed or micromanaged as long as they got the job done. Obviously, we'd look at data and we would measure success on their achievements, but we would never micromanage them. We looked at it and said, if we have to micromanage you, if we have to stay on top of you, we don't want you here.
Mhm.
That's not what we're looking for.
That's unbelievable. It's a great insight. And I'm just even wondering how you even got to that place. You know, you joined this business when you had 5 people, including your sister and your dad, and then
Yeah.
you're building a company of over 600 employees. What was that like to build a company and keep that company culture thriving, even as the business is scaling and getting so much bigger?
Yeah, it was first of all, it was that run was the greatest run ever, and I really enjoyed it. Back in the middle '90s, I'm not really educated. I went to high school, but I hated school since like the fourth grade, right? It just wasn't for me. But I did read this article in the middle '90s about Big Blue, which was IBM versus Microsoft. Microsoft just dropped Windows 95, and they were talking about the key cultural difference between Big Blue and Microsoft, and it really grabbed me. Microsoft was very open at that time, very free flowing with their product engineers and their software designers. Where Big Blue was the exact opposite. Everything was very strict and rigid. And the Microsoft model really grabbed me. And to be honest with you, I wanted to kind of, obviously not on the same scale, but I wanted to emulate that into ETS. And we were able to achieve it. I was really it was easy to do it with 50 employees, 75 employees. We got to like the hundreds, and then when we opened up North Carolina, wasn't as easy, but we were able to pull it off because we had the right team members, and that's the only way I would ever run a business is that way. Believe it or not.
It's amazing. And you said like you had growth pretty much every year you mentioned
Yes,
before, except for a couple of years, which was like
2 years.
maybe a slight 2 years. The Swell year, the year that Swell came after you guys.
Yes.
Um, can you just kind of go back to that? I know it's probably like a distant memory, but you probably remember it and probably have emotional feelings. I'll tell you from my perspective, it was very early in my swag cycle. We started the business in 2016. I think we launched our first e-commerce site in January of 2017, and within a month later, we got a cease and desist letter from Swell. And as a new entrepreneur in this space, I was like, I don't even know what I'm allowed to do. And I remember calling somebody at ETS and saying, "Oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here." And they assure this, everything's gonna be fine. But for me, it was something so new. And all I kept remember thinking is at the time, I'm very happy that ETS is fighting this because it felt like such a bullshit case that Swell was going after you, and I felt kind of like I knew even at that moment that ETS was going to be a great partner for us because of how they went to bat for the industry. That's how my perspective of like if the bigger companies started attacking all the suppliers in our industry and saying you can't copy this or that when they weren't copying it, it was a free design, it was out there already.
Right.
How was that in your perspective? It's probably an expensive proposition. It's clearly probably got your eye off the ball in some capacity. I could just imagine, like, you can't really focus on the core business when you're trying to fight a lawsuit. How was that experience for you, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so it was really a dark time for us because we knew, when we got sued, Sarah, who was the owner of Swell at the time, they were very aggressive. Like, usually when you have a patent infringement situation, you contact the supplier, but never before have I had somebody, a retailer, contact my customers, people like you, and they contacted other distributors. They really tried to go about it with fear. The case was bogus to begin with, and the reason being is that bottle existed. At that time I went to China at least 4 to 5 times every year, and I saw that bottle back in '08 at the Canton Fair. Well, Sarah didn't open her doors till 2010. Be this as may, as soon as we got sued, we started doing some research. We found online a bottle called Atlas bottle, which looked identical. We did some more research, come to find out that it was actually designed in India by a guy named Victor Kingston, and he happened to have a patent on it that was issued in 2006 in India. Well, okay. So then we went to court, and then I talked to Sarah. I said, we had a conversation. I wanted to get on my Marvin, my patent attorney, because we've had patent issues throughout. You just do. It's just how it is. So his thing was always like, Sharon, you know what? Talk to her. It was always this way. Talk to her. It's much cheaper to see if we could finish something before we go guns blazing. Okay, no problem. So I give Sarah a call, and she was adamant. She wanted her day in court. She didn't even want to hear me. I said, listen, Sarah, I had a similar issue with Contigo. We ended up turning a negative into a positive. We brought them in-house. We're doing over 10 mil for them annually now in their cost. I said, I'd love to do that for Swell. She said, absolutely not. These are serious charges. I said, respectfully, you didn't design this bottle. She's like, sure I did. I said, okay, whatever. So we go to court, and even the judge calls her out on it because he allowed the Indian patent. And what she didn't realize, and what I'm surprised is, because she was Harvard educated, okay, and her husband was a business ethics professor. And what blew me away is when the Indian patent came out, which they had in discovery, we had to turn it in. The judge even said in front of the jury, Sarah, these look awfully similar to me. Well, she had the audacity to tell him, well, my shoulders are a little bit different. He pretty much called her a liar in front of the jury. That's what we had. The whole case was bogus. That's why we came back with a unanimous decision. But it was a big fight. It was a huge battle. It was a lot of stress on the business. We won, but we didn't really win, Jeremy, to be honest with you. The lawsuit costed me either 2.7 or 3.2, I don't remember, $1 million just out of pocket. Uh, and yes, we won, but the stress it put on the company and me personally, it wasn't worth it, but we had no choice. She was asking for a crazy amount. She wanted $123 million in damages, if I remember correctly. And I was ready to go back to Tel Aviv, maybe sell falafels on the corner or something. What am I going to do? You know what I'm saying? I don't know anything else. So, anyways, we won, but we went to war because we knew the case was bogus, and I felt like if she would have got away with it, well, then that would open up the floodgates for the retail industry to come into our industry, and everything that looks similar now belongs to this or belongs to that. And I think it would have changed our industry tremendously. The main reason I wasn't willing to sell, the industry was so good for us. I said, you know what? I'm not sitting. I'm not. No, we're going to war on this one. We're going to win.
I felt that, and I was even thinking that I felt like other suppliers maybe should have even teamed up with you and helped you fight it, because it felt like such a pivotal point in the industry where it could go in so many different directions. And I was so new to the industry, I didn't know that much about it, but I was just seeing from the sidelines, and I was, I was saying this guy is doing what I think we all need to do at that time.
Yeah, to be honest with you, and shame on me, but I'll say it because I'll say it in public. I don't care. I was highly disappointed with my friendly competitors because we know each other. We've always helped each other out. But when it came to this lawsuit, everybody kind of looked the other way and didn't want to get involved, with the exception of Trevor from Logomark and Tom from Modern Glass. They both understood that if she took me down, they're next in line. But everybody else didn't see it that way. And they kind of just looked the other way, ran the other way, but we delivered a win for the industry, which was fine. But it was very telling for me. These people always talk about giving back and all this nonsense when you go to the Power 40 banquet or the Top 40 and the Power 50 and all this nonsense, all these events we go to where all the industry leaders are there and talk about giving back and this and that. Well, at the end of the day, when there was a real reason to get together and unite and protect the industry, nobody was interested outside of themselves except for those two people, Logo Mark and Modern Glass, which was a real eye opener for me, to be honest with you. Because I've lent equipment to some of our competitors in the past, and I was like, wow, okay, if that makes any sense. It was really like I
No,
was blown away.
it makes a lot of sense, and I can imagine it's like you kind of feel all alone. There's a lot, you're going through this. It's hard on yourself, emotionally, physically. I know with swag.com, we had a lot of ups and downs in the industry. We lived through COVID, which was, I mean, I had my wife was pregnant with our first kid. I'm living in my parents' house in my childhood bedroom. How am I going to survive this? Like you go through ups and downs, and to feel alone. I totally get that.
Yeah,
Now I wanna, I guess, take a 2 years later, so you win this case in 2017, and then your
2018,
company 2018,
28. Yeah,
and then the next year, you guys get acquired by PCNA.
yes.
Um, how was that process? How did that process come about? If you're
That
allowed to share,
process,
yeah.
yeah, I'll share a high view,
Yep.
but so that process actually started back, believe it or not, in 2009. We met for the first time in Vegas, and at that time, I think I was 34, and we were small. I think we are doing 24 million, right around there. And they were very interested at the time. They were just getting into space, but I wasn't. I didn't know how to do anything else, and I didn't really want to exit. I was still having a great time. Fast forward to 2018. Okay, we landed back from New York. I'll never forget. I think it was Good Friday. It was the Friday right before Easter, and we landed back from the lawsuit in New York. It was Derek, Tally, Adam, and myself. And I remember we're in the car. We're driving back. We're on the 405. They're celebrating. Everybody's so happy, and I'm livid, Jeremy, because I knew that 8 people could have just put us in the streets. Any way you sliced it, it was a lie. It was bullshit. But I knew that 8 people could have ended everything for us. And at that point, I said, you know what? I think I want to start looking at our options again because I didn't like how this went down. I felt like it should have never went to court. I felt like the judge allowed way too much things to go in. And I said, I didn't work all my life for some lady to come in and just take it from me. And that's when I decided to explore exiting. We had 6 really bona fide offers on the table, and the reason why I went with PCNA is the relationship I had at the time with Jim Epstein. I just got to know Michael Bernstein at the time. We just started to talk, even though we met in 2009 in that initial meeting between us. Neither one of us really remember that. So there we are. So, anyways, the relationship formed, and the reason why we sold to PCNA is because of their relationship, more than anything. And that was it. That was pretty much it.
I know Jim and, Michael very well, and I can imagine that they're unbelievable guys, so that seems like a perfect, match between you guys.
Yes, yes, I was very lucky to get to know those guys, to be honest, especially Michael. I've learned so much from him. Jim's always, I shouldn't say that. Jim's also been fantastic. I learned so much from those two guys, and they've really showed me another side of the business that I didn't know existed, i.e., the private equity world, which now I'm working with Michael with. So,
Amazing. So you're no longer at ETS, and you're
no,
doing your own thing.
yes,
How do you look at the promo industry? You've been in the business for a big chunk of your life. It sounds like majority of your life.
yeah.
And I know from my perspective, I sold swag. I am no longer at the parent company. I'm figuring out what I'm doing next. I'm taking some time off. But I love the industry. It's just something about this promo industry that gets me. And people from the outside don't fully understand of like, why do I want to one day start another promo business? I can't do it today, but in the future. What do you think it is about this industry that just keeps us all kind of sucked into it?
For me, I can't speak for others, but for me, what I always loved and still love about this industry is you have no cap, meaning anybody, even a guy like me with no high school diploma, can go as far as I did if you're willing to put the work in. And to me, that just describes our country. in a sense, right? You can do whatever you want to do as long as you're willing to do it and put the work in. No one, you can't get capped. Other countries, it's more about who you know or this or that. We don't have those issues here. Here, anybody who wants to work can come and go as far as they choose to go. You need a bit of luck. But if you're willing to put the work in our industry, sky's the limit. I also miss the industry. I miss the hustle and
Mhm.
bustle.
Yeah.
I miss I miss the well, me and my buddy started his business around the same time when we were young, and he also is retired now or semi-retired, whatever you want to call it. And we always say we miss the kill, meaning we miss waking up and taking out that next competitor or getting that next contract. I miss that. I really miss that. Will I ever come back? I don't know. The door is open for me, to be honest with you. I haven't decided.
So what are you working on these days? You say you mentioned Michael doing private equity. Is that where your
Yes.
focus is?
That's the main focus, between the private equity and then we have some real estate investments that my sister and I do together, and that's pretty much it. I usually spend half my day on either private equity or real estate or whatever investments we have going on, and the other half I usually enjoy myself. I try to have lunch at least two, three, four times a week with my dad, which is I look at it as a real privilege at this stage, and I'm spending a lot more time with the fellas. I'm really enjoying myself, but I am getting to the point where sooner or later, I think I'm getting the itch to maybe get back and do something a little bit more with my time. We'll see. Right now, I'm
Amazing.
really having a good time, but I think I will eventually do something else.
Well, if you do something else and you need not that much I can add to you, but a small investor, I'm happy to to be part of it. I'd love to
I
be
may take
involved.
you up on that because on the e-commerce and everything else, that's something you're very well at. So who knows what the future brings?
Who knows? Well, Sharon, I really appreciate you taking the time, and it was great to catch up with you again. And I'm so happy everything is going great. Just amazing. Still hanging out with your dad, still hanging out with your sister, investing, building a family business. True success all the way around. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our time together, and I hope to talk to you soon.